Welcome to the Pod People cast. Today we're going to share 9 bizarre alien abduction stories. We hope you enjoy it. The glowing light. Ken and his girlfriend Barbara had one of the strangest Valentine's days ever. She was attending school several hours away, and the couple rarely got to see each other. They planned to rent a hotel to spend the night together. At first, everything was fine. But when they went to sleep around 11 p.m., things started to get strange. In the middle of the night, they woke to see a strange light coming in through the window. It was a blue-gray color, like early pre-dawn light, but the room was still fairly dark. Slowly, the door to the hotel room swung open, revealing only one glowing light outside. It struck Ken as strange that there would only be one light on in the hotel's entire hallway. But then, everything about the situation he had woken up to was strange. Barbara was screaming, and he felt inexplicably furious, heart slamming, fists clenched. He suddenly had the sense that something powerful was coming into the room, but he lost consciousness before he could see what it was. The next day, his Barbara said she had slept fine that night. Ken at first dismissed it as a dream. But now, years on, he's convinced something truly strange happened that night. The Greys. Waldo claims to have been abducted multiple times, up until he was 13 years old. The first memory he had of an abduction was when he was in first grade. Waldo turned over in bed and saw a Grey standing there. It was 2 to 3 feet tall, and wearing a silky-looking black V-neck shirt. It also had a V symbol on its chest. As soon as Waldo looked at the Grey, he blacked out. Their next memory is of being woken up by his mother, and told it was time for school. These first 2 stories share one thing worth considering. Both took place at night when the people were in their beds. Barbara couldn't recall the event at all. Could it be that her memory was erased, or was the account only Ken's dream? It is unusual how Ken described blacking out while the door of their hotel room was ajar. Let us know what you think in the comments. The Creature. In our next story, a man named Charles also saw Greys when he was a young child, starting at age 6, and continuing until his mid-30s. At age 6, he woke to see a Grey standing in the room he shared with his 2 siblings. When the Grey realized that it had been seen, it ran from the room and then appeared to run through the closed door of their parents' bedroom. When they went into their parents' room to see if the Grey was there, it seemed to have disappeared. Many similar encounters happened over the next few years, although Charles didn't talk about it much, because he was scared of being teased. Although he didn't recall encounters with Greys during his teenage years, Charles had a truly terrifying experience when he was 25 and living in a 3rd-floor apartment. He awoke to find his bed surrounded by 4 or 5 small Greys, and 2 taller ones, who seemed to be performing some kind of operation. Charles could not move. The Greys seemed to communicate through some kind of clicking noise. In subsequent encounters, they would sometimes touch him with a black rod, which could cause him to black out for up to 24 hours at a time. At one point, Charles woke up on his back porch with no memory of what had happened. A bright light. During her senior year of high school, Lindsay and her best friend Sam were at Sam's house in Florida. They made and consumed some special brownies. Several hours later, they woke up terrified in her bed, and realized they had no idea where the day had gone. An unbelievably bright light was shining in through the window, and they could hear a humming noise. Sam was so terrified that she offered Lindsay $20 to go check on her family, and make sure they were okay. The light was too bright. If it had been from a car, it would have been pulled up right outside the bedroom window, shining its headlights in. But there was a tree and a fence right in front of the window that would have prevented a car from parking there, and the house was too far from the highway for the lights to have been coming from there. Despite the noise and bright lights, none of the friend's family woke up. Years later, Lindsay believes that she and her friend were either abducted that night, or witnessed someone else being abducted. Since that day, she's had the ability to mysteriously break electronic devices, just by going near them. 2 days vanished. Several years ago, I remembered on June 5th that we were eagerly looking forward to a friend's birthday 2 days from then, on the 7th. Then I woke to find that it was the 7th. I had a total gap where my memory of the 6th should have been. I looked at my wall calendar, and saw some new writing from the 6th. My handwriting. Although I didn't remember putting it there. My friends all told me that I had seemed sad and strange the day before, but I also had no memory of that. I had even prepared for the party on the 7th, but had no recollection of that either. Over time, I began to think less of the strange experience. But on New Year's Day of that year, I had an unnerving dream that would eventually become recurring. In the dream, I was lying down and held back by restraints. A bright light was shining in my eyes. I could hear static that sometimes sounded like random words in different languages. I still typically have that dream after emotionally trying days, and am planning to see a hypnotist soon. It left a mark. One night, a husband and wife had the same dream. They dreamt they were flying into a brightly lit, gas station-like structure that ended in a wall. Another dream they shared was one where she was lying on a table in a room, screaming, and he was watching her, unable to intervene. In the morning, they saw she had strange three-pronged markings on her thighs, almost as if she had been touched by a creature with 3 fingers on each hand. She later would tell him of a strange experience she had as a child, in which she was riding her bike in her village. Suddenly, the pedals stopped working. She saw a flash of light, and looked up to see a strange creature, like a giant praying mantis wearing a robe, coming out of the forest. She regained consciousness several hours later with no idea what had happened. Strange things happened all the time in their household. Cell phones malfunctioned, and circuit breakers and light bulbs constantly needed to be replaced. Eventually, the two split up. Now he lives in the United States, and is married to another woman, and no longer experiences strange phenomena. Dr. Gray. Sydney is used to having lucid dreams, but this one was something unlike what she had experienced before. One night, she dreamt they were walking through a museum of grey aliens. Then, she remembered being strapped to a hospital bed and surrounded by extremely tall doctors who didn't look human. Sydney screamed for them to stop, at which point they put something in her arms and told her, "Your pain level is going to be on maximum." She then experienced agonizing, strange pain. When Sydney woke, she had a bruise on her leg, and both arms were numb. The common grey. When Edward was around 8 years old, his family remodeled their home, at which point strange things began to happen. Edward's sister saw a ghostly boy floating outside their second-floor bedroom window. Their father saw a shadowy child entering his room while he tried to sleep. The family began to believe that their home might be haunted. But Edward saw slightly different phenomena. One night, they witnessed strange lights outside their bedroom window, and saw an alien grey, looking in the window. Another time, they saw a reptilian creature in their room, which hid when other people were there, and seemed very interested in Edward's pet ferret. After seeing the reptilian creature, Edward woke up one morning to see bruises and scratches on his back. The witch. Between the time she was 4 until she were 11, Jackie slept in a bed with a window directly above the headboard. Frequently, she would wake up in the middle of the night, and immediately felt terrified, at which point she see a tiny prick of light that would appear in the window. At that point, they would appear in Jackie's room, and would begin tickling and grabbing her. Sometimes, they would simply float outside the window, almost like ghosts. As Jackie got older, she would sometimes try and run downstairs to escape them, but the beings would always grab her and pull her back inside their bedroom. Sometimes, she would escape downstairs and see their parents sitting in the living room, staring blankly and catatonically at the staticky TV screen. After that, Jackie would have a vague memory of being dragged into a cylindrical room that was not in the house, and pulled towards a podium, on which sat a being that they called the witch. The witch would ask Jackie 3 questions, and when she couldn't answer, she would suddenly fall through the floor and wake up in bed. Years later, when Jackie's family was cleaning out the house's loft, they found a notebook of hers, with a very clear illustration of a UFO, and a grey. Which of these stories did you find most disturbing? Do you have a topic you would like to hear us cover? Let us know in the comments, and thank you for listening to the Pod People Cast.